Tempest in Teyvat, Rimuru's Elemental Odyssey by KabirSingh808. A haunting silence spread across Yashara Island. The storm that had raged fiercely was gone, its dark clouds scattered far beyond the horizon. For the first time in a long time, the sky above Inazuma was clear. The sun shone down, casting a warm but unsettling glow over the shattered battlefield. Jagged scars marred the land, deep fissures and collapsed cliffs bore witness to the brutal clash between two titans. Rimuru lay still amidst the rubble, his humanoid form battered and broken. His clothes were torn, his golden eyes dim. Black liquid continued to ooze from his mouth, sizzling and evaporating as it touched the earth. His body, though resilient, now looked fragile, trembling faintly as if fighting off something unseen. Not far away, Raiden Shogun's body was sprawled across the cracked earth. Her once glorious armor of condensed electro-energy had crumbled away, and the remnants of her power flickered weakly across her form. She was unconscious. But none of this compared to what hung above them. The sky. The massive tear that Rimuru's final attack had carved into the heavens loomed above, a gaping wound in the very fabric of reality. Through that rift, a terrible truth was laid bare for all of Teyvat to see. It wasn't just Inazuma. Every nation, Mondstadt, Liu, Sumeru, Fontaine, Natlan, and Snezhnaya, had turned their eyes skyward and saw it. The sky was not what they believed it to be. Beyond the torn veil, there was no endless blue. There was only darkness. A cold, endless void speckled with distant fragments of ruined celestial bodies. Shattered pieces of what might have once been worlds drifted in the black abyss. The people of Teyvat stared in horror and disbelief. In Mondstadt, the winds fell silent as even the carefree bards ceased their songs. Jean stood on the balcony of the Knights of Favonius headquarters, her eyes wide as she watched the sky rip open. Venti, gripping his lyre tightly, narrowed his gaze. In Liu, atop the jade chamber, Ningguang dropped her pipe, the porcelain shattering on the floor. Zhongli, far below in the harbor, stared skyward, his expression grave. In Sumeru, scholars abandoned their studies, their minds struggling to comprehend the impossible sight. In Fontaine, the justices of the courts fell silent, their voices drowned by the whispers of fear. And in the cold halls of Snezhnaya, Tsaritsa sat motionless, the ice around her throne cracking faintly. The entire world saw it. And then, slowly, the wound in the sky began to mend. The rift sealed itself unnaturally, as if invisible hands stitched the false sky back together. The dark void was hidden once more behind the illusion of clouds and sunlight. But it was too late. That fleeting moment had been enough to shatter the illusion, to awaken a dreadful realization across Teyvat. The sky was fake. Back on Yashara Island, Miko watched the fracture close with a troubled expression. The winds carried the distant murmurs of fear. This is beyond anything I expected. Even she couldn't stop him. If I hadn't intervened. She exhaled slowly, ears twitching at the distant sounds of soldiers whispering in terror. I can only hope this is enough, for now. Around them, soldiers from both the Yashara Commission and the Sangonomiya resistance stood paralyzed. The chaos of battle had been reduced to stunned silence. Neither side dared to move closer to Rimuru or Raiden. Fear rooted them in place, the memory of the sky splitting open fresh in their minds. The land itself was broken, trees uprooted, cliffs split, and the northern part of Yashara Island had shifted, the scar of Musojin Gorge nearly sealed by the force of Rimuru's punch. Yet above all this destruction, the sun continued to shine as if nothing had happened. Miko's eyes lingered on the sky as where the gash was, the false heavens had restored their illusion. Yet, the brief glimpse beyond had shaken the world. Her gaze shifted back to the battlefield, where Rimuru and Raiden Shogun lay unconscious amidst the wreckage. The distant sound of marching footsteps pulled her attention toward the tree line. Kuju Sera led a battalion of Tenryo Commission soldiers, her face cold and resolute. Apprehend anyone who opposes the shogun's will. Sera's commanding voice echoed across the battlefield. At her order, the soldiers surged forward, their weapons gleaming in the sunlight. Ye's expression darkened. This must be stopped. Wouldn't want this anymore. Without hesitation, Ye moved swiftly, silently trailing behind Sera. Her mind raced. If Sera reached Rimuru, it would only spark more conflict, and after witnessing the devastation of this battle, Inazuma couldn't endure another. But Sera's loyalty was absolute. She won't listen easily. Ye quickened her pace, closing the gap between herself and the advancing general, ready to intervene when the moment was right. Meanwhile, the wind on the battlefield shifted. A dark portal tore through the air beside Raiden Shogun's unconscious body. From its swirling depths stepped a man draped in dark robes, Feldway. His piercing eyes scanned the scene with unsettling calm. Behind him, several Fatui soldiers emerged, moving with silent discipline. Feldway surveyed the ruined ground, his gaze settling on Rimuru and Raiden. A smirk crept onto his face. Well, if it isn't a jackpot. He began to stride toward Rimuru, each step deliberate. But then, whoosh, two figures materialized in front of him, blocking his path. They were tall, imposing, and unmistakably human in form, but the air around them rippled with raw, ancient power. Ojal and Basht. Though bruised and scarred from earlier battle, they stood defiantly, their eyes burning with fury. Ojal's dark blue hair framed his sharp features, and the air around him seemed to tremble with the force of crashing waves. Basht, poised beside him, radiated quiet menace, her long deep blue hair flowing as if underwater, eyes narrowed in warning. Feldway paused, his expression tightening. So, you two survived. His tone was cold, almost dismissive. Ojal's voice rumbled, low and dangerous. You won't touch him. Basht's eyes glimmered. Not while we still stand. Feldway's smirk didn't falter. No matter. He's not my concern, for now. Casually, he turned on his heel and approached the fallen Raiden Shogun instead. With a mere flick of his hand, a purple glow began to seep from Raiden's chest. The electro-gnosis, its glow weak but still pulsing, tore free, floating steadily into Feldway's grasp. He studied it briefly, the smirk never leaving his face. This will do nicely. Casting one last glance at Ojal and Basht, he stepped back into the swirling portal. The rift snapped shut behind him, leaving only silence. Ojal and Basht remained unmoving, their battered forms standing guard over Rimuru and Raiden. But their eyes never left the place where Feldway had vanished. Far off in the distance, Ye Miko followed closely behind Kuju Sera, tension rising with every step. The storm was far from over. The battlefield was eerily quiet now, save for the faint rustling of the wind. On the scarred battlefield, Ojal slowly exhaled, his broad shoulders slumping. The will to fight that had carried him this far was fading, replaced by a numbing exhaustion. His legs gave out, and he dropped to the ground with a heavy thud, leaning back on his hands. Beside him, Basht wavered before falling to her knees, her breath ragged. Cuts and bruises marred their human forms, an unusual sight for beings once revered as sea gods. Basht winced, clutching her side. It's good he didn't start a fight, she mumbled, her voice barely above a whisper. Ojal let out a strained chuckle. Yeah, he leaned his head back, eyes closed for a moment. We wouldn't have lasted long. The brutal battle against Azathoth in Rimuru's personal space still haunted them. Though they had succeeded in sealing that ancient terror, the cost was devastating. Their strength was nearly depleted, and their bodies bore the evidence of that struggle. But their fleeting moment of respite was shattered by the sudden, sharp sound of footsteps pounding against the dirt. Ojal's head snapped up, his weary eyes narrowing. Over the ridge, a wave of Yashara commissioned soldiers emerged, their weapons gleaming in the sunlight. At their forefront, Kuju Sera led the charge, her expression cold and resolute. Her piercing gaze locked onto the two sea gods and the unconscious figure of Rimuru sprawled between them. There they are. Sera's voice cut through the still air like a blade. Apprehend them. The soldiers surged forward, swords and polearms at the ready. Ojal groaned, dragging himself upright. Are they serious right now? He muttered, exasperation heavy in his tone. Did they not see what Rimuru just did? Basht gritted her teeth as she stood, wobbling slightly. Ojal turned, crouching to carefully lift Rimuru's limp body onto his back. We're leaving. Basht gave him a tired nod, and without another word, they turned and began sprinting toward Watatsumi Island, their movements surprisingly swift despite their battered state. Sera's eyes flared with determination. Don't let them escape. After them. The soldiers lunged forward. Stop right there. A calm yet commanding voice echoed through the battlefield, halting the soldiers in their tracks. All eyes turned to see Ye Miko standing with quiet authority. Her arms were crossed over her chest, her expression cold and calculating. Sera's expression twisted in frustration. Guji Ye, they're getting away. We can't. Enough. Ye's single word cut through Sarah's argument, her voice sharp and final. A tense silence followed. Ye's violet eyes burned with quiet intensity. I understand your loyalty to the shogun. But this is not the time for reckless action. She lifted a slender hand and pointed toward the battlefield. There, the mighty Raiden shogun lay sprawled in the dirt, unconscious. Her once imposing figure was now vulnerable, her long bluish-purple hair tangled and splayed around her. Her elegant robes, always pristine, were now stained with dirt and torn from the brutal battle. Sarah's breath hitched at the sight. Look at her, Ye said quietly. This is what blind loyalty brings. Sarah's grip on her bow tightened. Help me bring her back to Narukami Island. Wait until she recovers before making any rash decisions. Sarah clenched her jaw. But and what do you think you can do against him? Ye snapped, her tone sharper now. Do you really believe you could capture him after what you just witnessed? Sarah faltered. Ye's expression darkened. The two who carried him off, they are not ordinary beings. She stepped forward slowly, her gaze boring into Sarah. They are the ancient sea gods, Ojal and Basht. The soldiers gasped in unison, shifting nervously. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. The sea gods. Yes. Ye's voice was laced with cold certainty. If they chose to fight back, none of you would survive. Not even you, Sarah. Sarah's hands trembled slightly, her grip loosening on her weapon. Ye's tone softened, but her eyes remained hard. You may not value your own life, but think of your soldiers. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Ye leaned in slightly. And do you think the shogun would forgive you if you led these men to slaughter? Sarah was silent, her mind racing. Her eyes drifted back to Raiden's still form. After a long pause, Sarah sighed deeply. Abandon the pursuit. Relief washed over the soldiers as they lowered their weapons. Sarah turned to them, her voice steady but tired. Assist Guji Ye. We must bring the shogun back safely. The soldiers moved quickly, gathering around Raiden's unconscious body with care. Ye watched them in silence for a moment, then turned her gaze back toward the horizon. Far in the distance, Ojal and Basht were already gone, Rimuru's unconscious form carried to safety. A breeze swept through the battlefield, carrying with it the distant scent of the sea. The vast ocean stretched endlessly beneath the soft glow of the clearing sky. The once ominous clouds that loomed over Yashura Island had dissipated, leaving behind a rare clarity that allowed the sun's rays to shimmer on the surface of the sea. Two figures sprinted effortlessly across the water, their movements fluid and graceful, as though the ocean itself welcomed their steps. Ojal and Basht moved with practiced ease, each footfall barely disturbing the waves. To them, the sea was as solid as stone, a gift of their divine heritage. The salty breeze whipped against their bruised and battered forms, but neither faltered, their focus solely on the unconscious figure of Rimuru slumped against Ojal's back. In the distance, scattered boats from the Watatsumi resistance drifted toward Watatsumi Island, filled with soldiers and civilians who had fled the chaos of Yashura Island. One of the resistance members on a boat squinted at the horizon, confusion flashing in his eyes. Wah, what is that? Others turned their heads, following his gaze. Two figures, blurs against the shimmering blue, were running. On the water. Gasps rippled through the boats. Is that even possible? One whispered. Who are they? Another murmured, gripping the side of the boat. The sea had always been a place of reverence and fear for the people of Inazuma, and now they watched in awe as two beings defied its very nature. But for Ojal and Basht, it was nothing extraordinary. They were, after all, the ancient sea gods. The ocean was their dominion. Soon, the rocky shores of Watatsumi Island came into view. The waves lapped gently against the pale sand, as if greeting the sea gods who now returned to solid ground. Ojal's steps slowed before he carefully knelt on the shore, easing Rimuru down onto the soft sand. With a tired groan, Ojal collapsed backward, resting on his elbows as he stared up at the sky. Ah, looks like I'll need to rest for quite a while after all this, he muttered, his voice low and hoarse. Basht let out a dry chuckle, lowering herself to sit beside him. You're not the only one. She rubbed her aching shoulders. After Azathoth and that whole mess, I feel like my bones might shatter if I move again. They sat in silence for a few moments, the rhythmic sound of the waves washing over them. Then, the distant sound of oars splashing echoed closer. The resistance boats began to dock along the shore, one by one. Men and women slowly disembarked, their steps hesitant as they spotted the two unfamiliar figures resting on the beach. Whispers spread among them. Is that him? The one who fought the shogun? How is he even alive after something like that? Their eyes shifted nervously between Ojal, Basht, and the unconscious Rimuru. The memory of the battle was still fresh in their minds, the earth-rending power that tore through Yashura Island, the sky shattering like glass. Many of them had fled in terror, and now, standing before the very beings involved in that devastation, their bodies instinctively tensed. Ojal cracked one eye open and smirked. They're staring. Basht huffed. Let them. They're smart to be cautious. But despite their wariness, none of the resistance soldiers dared to move forward. The raw display of power they had witnessed made their legs heavy with fear. And yet, beneath that fear, a flicker of awe lingered. The gods of the sea now sat before them. And between them lay the mysterious warrior who had fought the Raiden shogun to a standstill. The tension on the shores of Watatsumi Island hung thick in the salty air. The resistance soldiers stood frozen, eyes locked on the two imposing figures, Ojal and Basht, and the unconscious Rimuru lying between them. Whispers flickered among them like embers, but no one dared step forward. Until one man did. A young warrior with distinct animal ears carefully moved ahead, his cautious yet firm footsteps breaking the silence. His light orange-brown hair, streaked with a white stripe, fluttered in the breeze, and his sharp teal eyes stayed trained on the sea gods. His military uniform was both practical and decorated, marked by a gold pin, a dog paw emblem on his collar, and dark green-blue armor patterned with black and accented by a yellow stripe on the left. The Geo-vision at his side glimmered faintly in the light. It was Guro, the loyal general of the Watatsumi resistance. Despite the cautious atmosphere, Guro's voice remained steady. Sorry to intrude, but may I ask, what exactly are you here for? His grip tightened on his weapon instinctively, though he didn't raise it. Ojal slowly turned his head, his piercing gaze narrowing as it locked onto Guro. You talking to me, kiddo? His voice rumbled like distant thunder, sharp and laced with mock irritation. He leaned forward slightly, letting the tension hang heavier in the air. The effect was immediate. Several resistance soldiers instinctively reached for their weapons, their grips tightening with fear. Others shuffled back, using nearby rocks and boulders as makeshift cover. The memories of destructive battle made their hearts race. But then, whack! A solid fist crashed down on the back of Ojal's head. GHK. Ojal's face met the sand with an undignified thud. The one responsible stood over him, shaking her fist in irritation. Stop scaring them, you idiot. Basht scolded, glaring at him. What if they actually tried to fight? I'm not helping you if you start another battle. Ojal groaned, pushing himself up on his elbows. He spat out a mouthful of sand and muttered, okay, I get it. His grumbling was met with a few hesitant chuckles from the soldiers, the suffocating tension beginning to ease. Basht sighed and turned back to Guro, her stern expression softening into a polite smile. Apologies for that. We didn't mean to scare you, she said, gesturing calmly. We're just looking for shelter. The Yashura Commission soldiers are hunting us, and, our friend here, she motioned toward the unconscious Rimuru, they intend to apprehend him. Guro relaxed his stance slightly, though his guard remained raised. I see, he muttered, glancing at Rimuru thoughtfully. After a moment of contemplation, Guro straightened. I'll need to speak with Her Excellency about this. Please wait here. Basht nodded. Of course, we won't move. Guro turned, prepared to retreat up the beach. But a soft, commanding voice stopped him in his tracks. There's no need for that, General. The soldiers instinctively stepped aside, forming a clear path as a woman approached. Her presence was both calming and authoritative. She had long, light salmon-colored hair with delicate light blue ends, tied into a graceful bow ponytail, adorned with an indigo, fin-like ornament. Her mesmerizing eyes shimmered in a gradient of pink to dark indigo, lacking any distinct pupils, giving her an ethereal aura. She wore a flowing, navy blue kimono-like coat, accented with white wave patterns. The sleeves were frilled, decorated with delicate, shell-like ornaments, and the scalloped hem resembled gentle fins. Sangonomiya Kokomi, the divine priestess of Watatsumi Island, had arrived. Guro immediately straightened. Your Excellency. He greeted with deep respect. Kokomi gave him a gentle nod before shifting her gaze toward the strangers. Her serene eyes carefully studied the scene before her, the mighty Ojal, the graceful yet strong Basht, and the unconscious figure of Rimuru lying in the sand. Though her expression remained calm, her mind was already calculating the situation. The aura of the two standing figures was undeniable, they were not ordinary beings. Yet, they didn't appear hostile. Kokomi's voice was calm but resolute. I would like to understand why you've come to our shores. Basht, recognizing Kokomi's authority, gave a respectful nod. We seek only shelter, priestess. No harm will come to your people. Ojal snorted but said nothing, brushing lingering sand from his hair. Kokomi's gaze lingered briefly on Rimuru. And him. Basht's eyes softened. He's an ally. He fought the Raiden shogun to protect others. But now, he's unconscious. The Yashara Commission wants to capture him, but we couldn't allow that. A silence settled over the group as Kokomi considered their words. Finally, she spoke with quiet conviction. Very well. You may stay, for now. But I must ask for full honesty in all matters moving forward. My people's safety is my priority. Basht smiled gently. Understood. Ojal only grumbled. With the situation momentarily diffused, Kokomi turned to Guro. Prepare a place for them to rest. And have healers assess their wounded companion. Guro nodded sharply. At once, Your Excellency. As the resistance soldiers hesitantly moved to assist, Kokomi's serene eyes remained on Rimuru. As Kokomi turned to leave, her eyes caught movement in the distance. She spotted Kazuha and Beidou standing quietly, observing the surroundings. With a soft sigh, she approached them, her expression calm yet tinged with concern. Are you sure they are the people you mentioned? Kokomi asked, her gaze steady. Kazuha gave a small nod, his tone confident. Indeed, they are my friends. Despite his reassurance, Kokomi's brow furrowed slightly. Beidou chuckled, sensing her hesitation. You don't have to worry, Beidou said with a smirk. They have no ill intentions. They helped resolve the crises in Mondstadt and Liu, after all. Kokomi considered this for a moment before nodding slowly. Yet, something still unsettled her. But, I don't see the blonde traveler you mentioned. Kazuha's expression shifted to mild confusion. Yes, that still puzzles me. Where could he have gone? Beidou crossed her arms thoughtfully. We'll have to wait until Rimuru wakes up. He might know where the traveler is. Kazuha nodded in agreement. Kokomi, though still uneasy, gestured forward. Then let's move. We shouldn't linger here. Together, they began their journey deeper into Watatsumi Island. As Yae Miko and Kuju Sera entered Tenshukaku carrying Raiden Shogun's unconscious body, the air was heavy with tension. Soldiers murmured amongst themselves but quickly stood at attention when Sera barked orders to clear the way. Upon reaching Raiden's chambers, Yae paused, her fox-like eyes glinting as she turned to Sera. Everyone out, Yae commanded, her voice firm yet calm. But Lady Yae, I must, Sera began, her brow furrowed with concern. No arguments, Sera, Yae interrupted, her usual playful tone replaced with steel. This is something only I can handle. Reluctantly, Sera nodded, stepping back to organize the troops outside. As the heavy doors shut behind her, Yae exhaled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She turned her attention to the figure before her, the once mighty Raiden Shogun, now a shadow of her former self. Sitting on her knees beside A's prone body, Yae placed a hand over her heart. You can come out now, A, she murmured. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Raiden's eyes flickered open, not with the cold, mechanical precision of the puppet, but with the warmth and sorrow of the Archon herself. A's gaze was distant, her attempt to sit up faltering as her limbs trembled. Yae quickly moved to support her, guiding her to a seated position. Look at you, Yae said with a soft chuckle, though her tone held a hint of melancholy. The once unbeatable god of eternity reduced to this. You're lucky I'm here to pick up the pieces. Are you here to mock me, Miko? A's voice was low, strained, and tinged with exhaustion. Yae smiled, her vulpine charm returning. Oh, A, you wound me. Can't a dear old friend pay a visit without ulterior motives? She feigned wiping a tear. Spare me your dramatics, A replied with a sigh. Why are you here? Yae's smile faded, replaced by a rare seriousness. She leaned forward, her amber eyes locking onto A's violet ones. I'm here because Inazuma needs you, not your puppet, not your idea of eternity. You. A looked away, her hands clenched into fists. You know why I chose this path. After everything that happened 500 years ago. I lost so much. Now, all I have left is Inazuma. If I don't protect it through eternity, it could all disappear. Ye tilted her head, studying A with an expression caught between pity and frustration. And you truly believe this so-called eternity is protecting them? A, do you even see your people anymore? Do you know what they want, what they need? I know enough, A replied sharply. Eternity ensures stability. Without it, chaos will reign. Ye sighed deeply and reached into her sleeve, pulling out a small stone. She held it up to A. Tell me, what do you see? A stone, A said flatly. Ye nodded and placed it on the floor between them. And if I were to crush it? It's just a stone, A replied, her tone impatient. Its destruction would mean nothing. Exactly, Ye said, her voice soft but pointed. And what of Inazuma? If it becomes a place without purpose, without ambition, just an empty shell under the guise of eternity, what then? Would it truly matter if it continued to exist? A's eyes widened as the weight of Ye's words sank in. She looked down at her hands, her mind racing. A, Ye continued, her voice gentler now, your people don't need an unchanging eternity. They need hope, guidance, and you, their Archon, not some lifeless ideal. Do you really think eternity can heal the wounds of the past? Or are you just trying to shield yourself from the pain of losing again? A's shoulders trembled as she clenched her fists tighter. I don't know, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Ye leaned closer, placing a hand on A's shoulder. Then take the time to learn. Step out of the plane of Euthymia and see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. Your people don't want eternity, A. They want you, flaws and all. A heavy silence hung between them. Finally, A exhaled shakily, her voice wavering. I need to think about this. Ye smiled, her usual mischievous glint returning. That's all I ask. Oh, and you should clean yourself up. You're covered in mud from that fight with Rimuru. A blinked, her expression softening. So his name is Rimuru. Yes, Ye replied with a grin. Quite an interesting fellow, isn't he? Though I doubt he was trying to give you a spa treatment with all that dirt. A rolled her eyes, a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. You haven't changed, Miko. And you're still as stubborn as ever, Ye teased. Now go. And don't worry, I'll keep the palace in one piece while you wash up. As A rose unsteadily, she paused at the door. How long did you know I was awake? Ye chuckled, her tone playful. Oh, A, don't forget who taught you how to place your consciousness into objects. I knew the moment you stirred near Tenshukaku. A turned, a small smile breaking through her weariness. I see. Thank you, Miko. Ye watched her leave, her smile softening into something almost maternal. Always, A. The scene shifted to a quiet, dimly lit room where Rimuru slowly began to stir. His eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the soft light filtering through a paper window. He found himself lying on a futon, the room silent and empty. Slowly sitting up, Rimuru scanned his surroundings, noticing the traditional decor and the faint scent of incense lingering in the air. Rimuru placed a hand on his head, trying to gather his thoughts. Seal, can you hear me? He called out, his voice still groggy. A familiar, calm voice responded almost immediately. Yes, master. I am here. Relief washed over him. What happened? The last thing I remember was fighting Raiden Shogun. Ciel's tone remained composed. You lost consciousness after your battle with the Raiden Shogun. Rimuru's eyes widened as the memories flooded back. The fierce clash, the overwhelming power, and then, darkness. Panic briefly flickered in his chest. Wait, what about Ether and Paimon? Are they all right? Please calm down, master. They are both safe. Rimuru let out a heavy sigh of relief, his body relaxing as he slumped back onto the futon. Thank goodness, but who saved me? How did I even get here? Seal began explaining everything in detail, how Ojal and Basht had intervened, saving Ether and sealing Azathoth, and how Rimuru's battle with Raiden Shogun ended with both of them unconscious. As Rimuru absorbed this information, a glimmer of excitement appeared in his eyes. Oh, so Ether and I have a soul corridor now. Yes, master. The bond was formed during those critical moments. A satisfied smile crept across Rimuru's face. That's great. It's good to know he's safe. But, what about the Shogun? Where is she now? Raiden Shogun was taken back to Narukami Island. She is currently recovering. Rimuru leaned back, relieved. Good. At least things didn't spiral further. Wait, how long have I been out? 2 days, master. Rimuru bolted upright. 2 days. He clenched his fists. Azathoth, he's more powerful than I thought. Seal calmly agreed. Indeed, master. His strength surpasses expectations. Rimuru sighed, running a hand through his hair. I must have caused you a lot of trouble, huh? Sorry about that. There is no need to apologize, master. I am here to assist you. A small chuckle escaped Rimuru. Thanks, Seal. So, anything happened in Fontaine while I was out? No. Your clone remained with Farina throughout this time. Rimuru exhaled in relief. That's good. And Ether, where is he now? He is on his way here. He sensed your awakening through the soul corridor. As if on cue, the door to the room slid open. Ether stepped inside with Paimon hovering close behind, both looking relieved. Ojal and Basht followed them, their expressions softer than usual. Paimon was the first to speak. Rimuru, you're awake. Thank goodness. Ether gave him a relieved nod. It's good to see you're all right. Rimuru smiled warmly. Yeah, sorry for making you worry. Looks like I owe you all one. Ojal crossed his arms with a smirk. You sure do. But don't think we're letting you off that easy. Basht sighed but smiled softly. We're just glad you're safe. Rimuru chuckled. Thanks, everyone. Let's figure out our next move. We still have a lot to deal with. As the group continued chatting, Ojal casually leaned back and remarked, Oh, I almost forgot to mention, some stupid harbinger showed up right after you and the Raiden Shogun both went unconscious. The room instantly fell into a suffocating silence. Rimuru slowly turned toward Ojal, his expression darkening. His voice was low but sharp, carrying an undeniable edge. What did you just say? Ojal blinked in confusion. Huh. Oh, yeah. Some guy showed up, but it didn't seem important at the time. Rimuru's eyes narrowed, his body tense. And you're telling me this now? Ojal casually shrugged. Well, you just woke up, didn't you? Rimuru's fist clenched tightly. You could have told Seal. Ojal scratched the back of his head. Well, she was basically out cold. She drained almost all her power and only woke up yesterday. Rimuru's voice dropped to a dangerously calm tone. And you still didn't think to tell her? Ojal chuckled awkwardly. I mean, yeah, but the guy didn't do anything. He just stood around and left, so I figured it wasn't worth bothering you. The silence in the room became oppressive. Everyone stared at Ojal except for Basht, disbelief and irritation on their faces. Feeling the weight of their gazes, Ojal raised his hands defensively. Why are you all staring at me like that? Rimuru let out a slow, sharp breath, pinching the bridge of his nose. Are you seriously that dense? A harbinger showing up is critical information. Ojal blinked. Well, I mean, yeah, but he didn't do anything. Rimuru turned to Basht, his eyes narrowing. And did you know about this too? Basht hesitated for a moment, then sighed in defeat. Yes, but I was preoccupied, and things seemed under control. Rimuru's gaze darkened, his voice a low growl. Who was it? Ojal tapped his chin, thinking. What was his name again? Basht cut in, her voice uneasy. It was Feldway, I think. Time seemed to freeze. Rimuru's eyes widened, his bangs casting a shadow over his face. Feldway. The name slithered off his tongue like poison. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Rimuru slowly lifted his head, a dangerous grin stretching across his face. His aura pulsed ominously. And you thought it wasn't important to tell me that Feldway was here? Ojal took a nervous step back. Before he could finish, Rimuru's cold grin deepened. Seal. Yes, master. Ciel's tone was soft but carried a chilling undertone. Double their training. And you know what else to do. Understood, master. Ojal and Basht froze, terror flashing across their faces. No. Anything but that. Ojal screamed, pure panic in his voice. We're already on the brink of death. If you do this, we'll actually die. Basht paled. Please reconsider. Rimuru chuckled darkly. Oh, don't worry. You won't die. Me and Seal have absolute control over our personal space. We'll make sure you both endure this torment. Oh, I mean training. Ojel's face contorted in fear, and before anyone could react, he lunged at Rimuru, clinging to him desperately. "Please don't do this," he wailed, tears streaming down his face, snot dangerously close to Rimuru's clothes. "Ah, hey, watch the clothes." Rimuru flinched, awkwardly leaning away to avoid getting slimed. Is this really a sea god? He thought in disbelief. But then, Beisht hesitated, her expression darkening. "There's more." Rimuru slowly turned his head toward her, his voice low and cold. "What else?" Beisht glanced at Ojel, then back at Rimuru. Feldway didn't just leave. Before he disappeared, he took Raiden Shogun's Gnosis. The room fell deathly silent. Rimuru's breath hitched, his mind racing. He took her Gnosis. Beisht nodded slowly. Yes. He approached her unconscious body and extracted it. None of us could stop him. Rimuru's fists trembled, his expression shadowed by his bangs. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet but filled with rage. "Feldway, you bastard." The air in the room grew heavier, his magical pressure unconsciously seeping out. "Seal." "Yes, Master," Seal answered, her voice sharper. "Triple their training." "Understood." Ojel let out a high-pitched shriek. "Triple." "No." Rimuru didn't even glance at him. His mind was already spinning, strategizing. Feldway has Raiden Gnosis now, and what are the Fatui planning? As Rimuru's fury simmered, the door suddenly creaked open. Standing there were Beidou, Kazuha, Kokomi, and Guro, all staring at the chaotic scene before them. Ojel, the ancient sea god, was clinging to Rimuru like a terrified child, snot and tears streaming down his face. Beidou blinked, her mouth slightly open. "Ah, are we interrupting something?" Ojel immediately detached himself, standing up straight and coughing awkwardly. "Ahem. No, not at all. We were just practicing grip strength." "Yes, grip strength." Everyone in the room felt a cold sweat forming on their backs. Beidou raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Grip strength, huh? That's a new one." Kazuha exhaled slowly, while Kokomi maintained her calm demeanor, though a flicker of confusion crossed her eyes. Guro's ears twitched, clearly unsettled. Rimuru sighed heavily, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Just come in." Beidou chuckled as she stepped forward. "We heard you were awake, so we came to check in. But seems like you've got your hands full." Ojel tried to regain his composure, coughing again. "Yes, well, it's all part of a training regimen." As everyone settled down, Rimuru's gaze shifted toward Kokomi. His expression softened as he spoke sincerely. "Thank you for giving us shelter, Kokomi. I won't forget what you've done for us." Kokomi offered a gentle smile, her eyes reflecting quiet strength. "Oh, don't worry about it. The Sangonomiya resistance is always ready to help those who oppose the Vision Hunt decree." Rimuru nodded in gratitude. His eyes then drifted to familiar faces, Kazuha and Beidou. A small smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "So, when did you two get here?" Beidou crossed her arms, a proud grin on her face. "Not long ago. We sailed in to support the resistance against the Vision Hunt decree. But just as we were about to make our move, your little skirmish with the Raiden Shogun kicked off." Kazuha chuckled softly, his eyes thoughtful. "It was quite the spectacle. I must admit, witnessing that battle was unforgettable." Rimuru let out a sigh, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah, well, it would have been a lot more troublesome if Raiden hadn't been able to stop me." Everyone nodded in quiet agreement, acknowledging the scale of power that had been on display. Beidou leaned forward, curiosity gleaming in her eyes. "But, seriously, what's with the sky? Your attack tore right through it. Do you even remember that?" Rimuru's expression darkened slightly. Ciel's earlier explanation echoed in his mind. After a brief pause, he answered, "Yeah, I know what happened. I've been thinking about it, and I believe this entire world is surrounded by some kind of barrier." Ojel, lounging lazily, chuckled darkly. "Indeed. It seems the heavens are holding quite a few secrets from Teyvat." Kazuha's gaze sharpened with curiosity. "But what about those broken fragments of a planet floating beyond the sky? What could they be?" Rimuru fell silent, contemplating. "Ciel, what do you think?" he asked mentally. Ciel's calm voice echoed in his mind. "Given the data, Master, it is plausible they are remnants of a celestial body. Possibly, the moon." After a moment, Rimuru spoke up. From what I can gather, those fragments might be pieces of a shattered moon. Confusion rippled through the group. Rimuru leaned back slightly. Have any of you heard of a book called Moonlit Bamboo Forest from Liu? Everyone turned toward Beidou, the only native of Liu among them. Beidou scratched her head. I've heard of it, but I can't say I know much about its content. Rimuru smiled faintly. Well, in Volume 3, it's mentioned that, long ago, there were 3 moons in Teyvat's sky which are known as the 3 Moon Sisters. Paimon blinked in surprise. Huh, isn't that just a fairy tale or something? Rimuru shook his head. I don't think so. Considering we saw fragments of a celestial body beyond the sky, I believe there's truth to that story. Ether's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. But why are they shattered now? Rimuru's expression grew serious. According to the story, during the Great Calamity, the 3 Moon Sisters turned against one another and destroyed themselves. Only shattered pieces of one moon remain, casting a dim light over Teyvat. Paimon gasped, floating closer. They killed their own sisters. That's so sad. But why would they do that? Rimuru sighed. I don't know. But it could be connected to the Great Calamity mentioned in that book. Beidou leaned back, a thoughtful look on her face. Looks like I need to track down that book once I get back to Liu. Rimuru smirked. No need to wait. He casually lifted his hand, and with a flick of his wrist, multiple pristine copies of Moonlit Bamboo Forest materialized in his grasp. The books shimmered briefly before settling. Everyone stared in stunned silence. Beidou's jaw dropped. Okay, what? Kazuha chuckled softly, impressed. You have quite the array of abilities. Rimuru grinned playfully. Well, you could say that. Beidou blinked at the stack of books, then shook her head with a laugh. All right, you've officially impressed me. Kazuha took one of the books, flipping through the pages thoughtfully. To think stories like this might hold real truths. As Rimuru casually handed each of them a copy of Moonlit Bamboo Forest, a sudden chill crawled up his spine. His relaxed expression darkened as his sharp eyes scanned the room. He subtly heightened his senses, expanding his awareness far beyond the walls of the shelter. Yet, no matter how far he reached, he found nothing, only the quiet rustle of leaves and the distant sound of waves. Ether, noticing the shift in Rimuru's demeanor, leaned forward with concern. Rimuru, is everything all right? Rimuru's gaze slowly drifted back to the group, though his guard remained up. Yeah, probably. He paused, studying their faces. But tell me, do any of you feel like we're being watched right now? The room fell into a tense silence. Goro immediately stood up, his instincts as a general kicking in. I'll check the perimeter. Rimuru gave him a firm nod. Be careful. As Goro slipped outside, the tension lingered. Rimuru exhaled slowly, masking his unease, and shifted the conversation. So, Kokomi, Rimuru began, his voice returning to a calm tone. Is there any ongoing fighting between the resistance and the shogun's army? Kokomi shook her head softly. No. Since your fight with the shogun, there have been no sightings of her forces on Yashiori Island. She hesitated, then continued, and even if they did plan to fight back, it would be nearly impossible. The landscape is in ruins, fallen trees, massive boulders, debris scattered everywhere. It's hard enough for a single unit to set up camp, let alone march an entire army through that chaos. Rimuru nodded thoughtfully. So they're sitting back, waiting. The situation isn't in their favor right now. Exactly, Kokomi agreed, her expression pensive. Rimuru leaned forward slightly, his tone shifting. Kokomi, I wanted to ask, have you noticed any Fatui activity in Inazuma lately? Kokomi frowned, thinking. Not directly. My scouts reported sightings of Fatui operatives on Yashiori Island about a week ago, but after that, they vanished. I see. Rimuru muttered, fingers tapping lightly on the table. Kazuha, watching Rimuru closely, spoke up. Are you suggesting the Fatui had a hand in all of this? Rimuru's eyes narrowed. It's obvious they're pulling strings from behind the scenes. But Kokomi mentioned they haven't been seen in a while. That's suspicious. Rimuru said slowly. During my investigation, I found letters hidden within the Tenryo and Kanju commissions. Proof of their collaboration with the Fatui. Kokomi's eyes widened slightly. Wait, are you implying that the Tenryo and Kanju commissions betrayed the shogun? Rimuru nodded slowly. Exactly. The weight of his words settled heavily in the room. Kazuha's expression darkened in thought. That explains why the Vision Hunt decree was enforced so suddenly. It wasn't entirely the shogun's will. Rimuru leaned back, his tone casual but edged with confidence. Yes. But let's not rush. I've already set things in motion. Confusion flickered in their eyes. Kokomi leaned in slightly. What do you mean? Rimuru smirked faintly. I've already sent proof of the commission's betrayal to a certain fox on Narukami Island. She promised to handle the rest. Kokomi's eyes widened in realization. A fox? You mean Yae Miko of the Grand Narukami Shrine? Rimuru nodded. That's right. Kazuha hesitated, his brows furrowing. Are you certain she's on our side? Rimuru chuckled softly, his expression unreadable. Don't worry. She is. For a moment, silence filled the room as everyone absorbed the gravity of Rimuru's revelation. The Resistance's understanding of their enemy had deepened, and now the pieces were starting to fall into place. But Rimuru's mind lingered on that unsettling sensation from earlier. Someone was watching us, but who? Just then, the door creaked open, and Goro stepped back in, his face tense. I didn't find anyone. Rimuru leaned back slightly, his sharp gaze softening. Oh, okay. Don't worry about it, Goro. Just sit down and relax. Though his words were calm, a nagging sensation still crawled at the back of Rimuru's mind. That presence, it's still there. He kept his expression neutral and spoke to Seal in his mind. Seal, can you look into this? Something, or someone, is watching us. Ciel's voice, soft but analytical, echoed in his mind. Understood, Master. I will begin a search for any hidden presences around you. Deciding to set aside the unease for now, Rimuru refocused on the group. Looks like we'll have to wait for some time. In the meantime, I'll send out my clones to scout discreetly. He raised a hand slightly, and faint ripples of energy stirred the air as his clones silently slipped away, vanishing into the shadows beyond the shelter. For now, let's just wait and watch what move they make next. His tone carried a quiet confidence. Everyone in the room exchanged glances and nodded in agreement, trusting Rimuru's judgment. Then, that's all for now. Rimuru leaned back, his fingers tapping the armrest thoughtfully. Despite the calm in the room, an unspoken tension lingered, an invisible threat looming just beyond their senses. The scene shifted to the solemn halls of Tenshukaku. Yae Miko gracefully stepped out of the Electro-Archon's chamber, her fox-like eyes scanning the surroundings. Not far off, Kuju Sera was speaking with several soldiers, her commanding tone issuing orders. Yae's voice, smooth and teasing, cut through the air. Oh my, General Sera, what are you up to now? Sera turned slightly, her expression stern but respectful. Due to the recent battle, the Tenshukaku and several districts of Inazuma City have suffered significant damage. I'm assigning units to manage repairs and maintain order. Good, good. Yae's smile sharpened slightly. Now then, could you send these soldiers away? I have something important to discuss with you. She gestured casually toward the guards. Sera narrowed her eyes but gave a curt nod. Leave us. The soldiers bowed and silently exited, leaving the two women alone in the grand hall. Yae's playful tone faded, replaced by a cool seriousness. Tell me, General, why do you think the Vision Hunt decree was enacted? Sera's brows furrowed. It was the will of the shogun, approved by the Kuju clan and the Kanju Commission. Why are you asking? Yae's eyes glimmered, her voice dropping to a softer, more dangerous tone. And what if I told you that it wasn't the shogun's true will? That the Fatui manipulated the decree to destabilize Inazuma, and that your masters, the Kuju clan, knowingly kept the shogun in the dark. Sera's entire body stiffened. Her grip on her bow tightened as she glared at Yae. Guji Yae, these accusations are absurd. Do you even understand what you're implying? Unbothered, Yae's sly smile returned. I understand perfectly. With a flick of her wrist, she produced several sealed letters, their edges marked with the insignias of the Kuju clan and the Fatui. Perhaps these will help you understand as well. Sera hesitated, then snatched the letters from Yae's hand. Her eyes darted across the contents, each line sinking deeper into her mind. Her expression darkened, lips curling in disbelief and fury. These are orders, and correspondence with the Fatui. How? Does it matter how I got them? Yae interrupted smoothly. Shouldn't you be more concerned with how your clan deceived the shogun? Sera's hands trembled for a moment before steadying, her eyes burning with resolve. Without another word, she turned on her heel and stormed off, bow in hand. Ye chuckled softly, watching her go. Run along now, little Tengu. Let's see how you handle betrayal. Turning back towards the shogun's chamber, Ye gracefully re-entered. Inside, she found Ye seated calmly at a low table, delicately eating a slice of cake. Ye smirked. Look at you, savoring that cake like a child tasting sweets for the first time. Ye glared at her from the corner of her eye. Must you always say things like that, Miko? Ye laughed softly, circling the table. Do I have to? No. Do I want to? Absolutely. Ye sighed, setting the fork down. I assume you told Sarah everything. Of course, Ye replied nonchalantly. She deserved to know. And she's quite capable, she'll confront the Kuju clan soon enough. Ye's expression turned thoughtful. You didn't have to involve her so directly. She will be forced to fight those she once trusted. True, Ye admitted, her tone softening slightly. But she's stronger than you think. Besides, it's necessary. She leaned closer, folding her arms. So, have you made your decision yet? Ye looked away, conflicted. I don't know. I'm still considering it. Ye's sharp gaze softened for a moment. I understand why you seek eternity. But you must realize that there are many ways to achieve it. The Vision Hunt decree has caused nothing but pain, and now you know it was born from deceit. The Fatui's plot, the suffering of your people, isn't it time to end this? The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the faint clinking of porcelain. Ye's hands tightened slightly on her lap. I will think on it, carefully. Ye smiled, satisfied. Good. Just remember, Inazuma cannot endure much more of this. As Ye turned to leave once more, Ye quietly reached for the cake again, taking another slow bite. Ye's voice echoed softly as she stepped away. And do try to enjoy the cake, eh? The scene shifted back to Rimuru, who sat quietly in the dimly lit room, the soft glow from a lantern casting shadows on the walls. His eyes were half closed as he conversed with Seal in his mind. Seal, are you certain there's no trace of who might be watching us? Rimuru's mental voice was calm but edged with caution. Ciel's voice echoed gently in his mind. I've scanned the area thoroughly, but nothing unusual has appeared. Whoever is watching us is skilled enough to avoid even my detection. It's not Raiden Shogun, her methods are more direct, and I would sense her interference. Rimuru leaned back, crossing his arms, his expression thoughtful. Then who? No one else should have that kind of capability, unless they're using something beyond this world's understanding. Before Seal could respond, the wooden door creaked open. Ether stepped in, followed closely by Paimon, who hovered with her usual curiosity. Ether's expression was serious. Rimuru, I need to ask you something, Ether said, closing the door behind him. Rimuru turned to face him. Oh, what's on your mind? Ether paused for a moment, glancing at Paimon, who gave him an encouraging nod. I wanted to ask about the Soul Corridor. I never got the chance to ask Seal about it. Rimuru's eyes narrowed slightly, then softened. Ah, the Soul Corridor. I suppose it's natural for you to be curious about it. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. A soul corridor is a connection that links two souls together. It's not something that happens casually. Normally, it requires deliberate action or a powerful catalyst. Ether's brows furrowed. Is that even possible between people from different worlds? Rimuru smirked slightly. Normally. No. But remember the shard that Basht used on you. Ether's eyes widened. The one that merged into my body. Exactly, Rimuru nodded. That shard contained a fragment of my life force. It was what kept you alive during the fight. When your body absorbed it, that piece of me became part of your soul. Seal likely used that fragment to form the soul corridor between us. Ether stared at him in disbelief. So, does that mean I'm connected to you? Like family? Rimuru chuckled softly but then gave a thoughtful nod. In a way, yes. Our souls are now linked. You could say we're closer than mere allies. Ether blinked, trying to process the information. Wow, I didn't expect that. Rimuru's expression turned more serious. Speaking of unexpected things, I heard from Seal that you fought Azathoth. She told me some details, but she mentioned that you awakened some sort of power during that fight. I want to hear it from you directly. Ether looked surprised. Seal didn't explain it. She gave me the facts, Rimuru said, eyes narrowing. But I want your perspective. Ether hesitated, glancing at Paimon. She gave him a worried look but nodded for him to continue. All right, Ether sighed. I'll tell you everything. The scene slowly shifted into Ether's memory. The battlefield was drenched in dark, swirling energy. The energy is swirling with unnatural colors. Ojal and Basht loomed, in their human forms. Ye Miko stood poised, her eyes sharp, ready to strike at any moment. Paimon hovered nervously beside Ether, who gripped his sword tightly. Before them stood Azathoth, an overwhelming presence of chaos, a formless entity pulsing with void energy. Its distorted form seemed to warp reality itself. Ciel's voice echoed faintly in the distance, I will maintain the seal, but you must hold him back. Ether's hands trembled. The sheer weight of Azathoth's presence was crushing. He had fought gods and monsters before, but this was different. This was something that defied existence. As the fight about to start, how Ether and his friends will be able to hold him back until Seal make the seal back to what is was depends entirely on them. To be continued.